General Hospital spoilers for Tuesday, February 3rd. Predict the sound that haunted the hospital corridor was not the flat monotone of a heart monitor, but the raw animal cry that tore from Willow's chest when she realized Michael would not bend. It was the moment everything cracked open. Drew lay unconscious behind a glass wall, his body battered and helpless, and yet Willow's rage had nothing to do with his fragile breathing. Her fury was about control slipping through her fingers, about Wiley and Amelia, about the future she was determined to seize no matter how much blood it cost. In that instant, the woman everyone once pitied disappeared completely, leaving only calculation and fury and a willingness to destroy anyone who stood between her and what she wanted. Alexis felt the weight of that fury even before she faced it directly. She was doing something she never wanted to do, and every step toward Michael's door felt heavier than the last. Willow had been clear in her demand, even if she wrapped it in false vulnerability. She wanted Alexis to act as the bridge to Michael, to soften him, to sell him a deal that would place the children closer to Willow's reach. Alexis hated herself for agreeing, but she also understood the danger of refusing. Willow was not simply desperate. She was volatile and unpredictable, and Alexis feared what she might do if pushed too far. Michael listened in silence as Alexis laid out Willow's proposal. He did not interrupt. He did not raise his voice. His calm was more unsettling than anger would have been. When Alexis finished, he shook his head slowly and said no. He said Willow could come to him herself if she wanted anything. There would be no intermediaries, no whispered negotiations, no backroom deals. Alexis tried again, carefully choosing her words, reminding him of stability and appearances and the children. Michael's eyes hardened. He told her he had already been far too gentle with Willow. What Alexis did not know was how much Michael truly understood. He had seen the cracks long before anyone else. He had noticed the inconsistencies, the moments when Willow's mask slipped and something cold stared back at him. He suspected secrets, dark ones, but he had chosen silence, believing restraint would protect the children. He did not share any of this with Alexis, and in a twist of irony, he had no idea that Alexis herself carried knowledge that could shatter everything Willow was trying to build. When Alexis returned with Michael's refusal, Willow's reaction was explosive. She accused Alexis of betrayal, of incompetence, of secretly siding with Michael. Her voice echoed through the room, sharp and venomous. Alexis tried to reason with her, but Willow was beyond reason. She believed Alexis had failed on purpose, or worse, had not tried hard enough. In Willow's mind, everyone was an enemy or a tool, and Alexis had just proven herself useless. With nowhere safe to release her anger, Willow turned toward the easiest target. Drew lay defenseless, unaware of the danger inching closer to his hospital bed. Willow had already crossed this line before, attacking him twice when he could not fight back, and now the thought of doing it again brought her a twisted sense of control. The idea that she could hurt someone and face no immediate consequence fed the darkness inside her. She stood over him, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, and felt nothing resembling guilt. Elsewhere, another storm was brewing. Jason stood alone, replaying his final conversation with Britt over and over. She had refused to run with him, not because she did not care, but because she cared too much. Britt understood the cost of a life on the run. She understood that Rocco would never be safe, and that Jason would never stop putting himself in danger. More than that, she needed her treatment. Without it, her condition would spiral, and running would only hasten the end. Yet that conversation had changed everything. Britt had trusted Jason with truths she had kept buried. Sidwell had killed Dalton, and Cullum was the shadow above them all, the one who controlled Sidwell and Britt alike. The revelation hit Jason hard. He had lived his life navigating enemies, but this was different. Cullum was not just another threat. He was the only person who could ensure Britt's access to the medication, keeping her alive. Jason began searching for impossible solutions. Could the treatment be replicated? Could another doctor recreate it without the formula? Britt was certain it could not be done. She knew the science. Cullum had designed it to be irreplaceable, to keep absolute control. Taking him down without losing the medication seemed impossible, yet Jason refused to accept that Britt's life was a bargaining chip destined to be lost. While Jason fought a strategic war, in his mind, Anna was fighting for survival. Injured, imprisoned, and weakened, she had no clear path to escape. Each passing hour drained her strength and hope, but she was not as alone as her captors believed. Brooke, Lynn, Gio, and Emma were already moving quietly, piecing together fragments of information and following instincts sharpened by fear and loyalty. Jocelyn played an unexpected role when she stumbled upon a clue pointing to Anna's location at the castle. She did not hesitate. She reached out to Emma, knowing she was already searching. The news Emma received was worse than she feared. Anna was being held against her will, and her injuries were severe. Escape on her own was unlikely. Time was slipping away. Emma understood the risks, but secrecy was essential. A loud rescue would only get Anna killed. They needed precision and speed and absolute trust in one another. Every decision carried weight, and Emma felt it pressing down on her chest as she planned their next move. As tensions rose across Port Charles, Sonny found himself pulled into yet another confrontation. His patience was wearing thin, and Alexis once again stood in the line of fire. Sonny could not understand why Alexis continued to involve herself in Willow's custody battle. He believed she was enabling chaos and endangering Michael and the children. His anger flared and his words cut deep. He warned her to step away, to let him handle it if she could not see reason. Sonny was ready to go all the way. He would protect Michael at any cost, and if that meant destroying Willow's plans and anyone standing with her, he would not hesitate. Even Alexis was not beyond his reach if she insisted on aligning herself with the wrong side. The city felt like it was holding its breath. Alliances were shifting, secrets tightening around throats, and every character stood on the edge of a decision that would define them. Willow's hunger for control, Michael's quiet resolve, Jason's impossible mission, Anna's fading strength, and Sonny's looming wrath all collided in a single moment of fragile balance that threatened to collapse without warning. The tension that had been stretched thin across Port Charles finally began to snap in quiet, dangerous ways. Willow did not scream this time when she returned to Drew's room. Her anger had cooled into something sharper and more focused. She stood beside his bed, watching the machines breathe for him, and in that stillness, she made a decision that would change everything. She whispered to him words meant only for herself, about sacrifice, about necessity, about how some people existed only to be used. Her hand hovered over the tubes and wires, not enough to kill him, but enough to remind herself how much power she still held. When she finally turned away, there was a calm on her face that was far more frightening than rage. Michael felt that shift without seeing it. He sat alone later that night, replaying Alexis's visit and the way her eyes had avoided his. He knew something was moving behind the scenes, something ugly and relentless. For too long he had believed silence was protection, but now it felt like complicity. He pulled out his phone and stared at Willow's name. Part of him wanted to demand answers, another part feared what she would say if confronted directly. In the end, he chose action over avoidance. If Willow wanted a confrontation, she would get it, but on his terms. Alexis was unraveling. Sonny's warning echoed in her mind, and Willow's accusations still burned. She had walked a line believing she could manage the damage, but now she saw how wrong she had been. Willow was no longer someone to be negotiated with. She was a storm. Alexis finally admitted the truth to herself, that she had her own knowledge about Willow and that keeping it buried was no longer an option. The secret she carried was dangerous, but silence was becoming more dangerous still. Jason moved through the city like a ghost. Every lead he chased seemed to circle back to Cullum. The man was insulated, protected by layers of influence and fear. Taking him down would require exposure, not brute force. Jason began quietly reaching out to contacts he trusted, gathering pieces of a larger picture. If he could dismantle Cullum's operation without destroying the supply chain, there might be hope. Britt's life depended on a plan that had never been attempted before. Britt sensed the shift in Jason when he returned to her. She saw it in his eyes, the way he looked at her as if memorizing her face. She warned him again that hope could be crueler than reality, but she also did not stop him. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine a future that was not defined by borrowed time. She told him everything she knew, every safeguard Cullum had built, every contingency meant to prevent betrayal. Each word felt like a confession and a goodbye all at once. At the castle, Emma and her small team moved with purpose. Brooke Lynn handled logistics, Gio scouted quietly, and Emma coordinated every step. Jocelyn fed them updates whenever she could without drawing attention. The knowledge that Anna was hurt pushed them harder. They studied patterns, guard, rotations, blind spots, anything that could give them an advantage. There was no room for error. One mistake would cost Anna her life. When the moment finally came, it happened fast. The group slipped inside under cover of darkness, hearts pounding, breaths shallow. Emma found Anna barely conscious, her strength almost gone. Seeing her like that nearly broke Emma, but she forced herself to focus. They worked quickly, stabilizing her enough to move. Every second felt like an eternity, but somehow they made it out unseen. When they reached safety, Emma allowed herself to cry, holding Anna as if afraid she might disappear. Sonny learned about the rescue shortly after and understood immediately what it meant. Lines were being crossed, secrets exposed, and the illusion of control was gone. He doubled down on his support for Michael, making it clear that Willow would not win this war. His anger toward Alexis softened slightly when he realized she was beginning to see the truth. Still, trust once fractured was not easily repaired. The confrontation Michael demanded finally happened. Willow arrived, expecting leverage, and left facing consequences. Michael laid everything out, his suspicions, his boundaries, and his refusal to be manipulated any longer. Willow tried to cry, to threaten, to bargain, but none of it worked. For the first time, she saw that Michael was no longer the man she could outmaneuver. Something inside her snapped. She left knowing she had lost ground and vowing not to lose the war. Jason's plan came together at a terrible cost. Callum was exposed, his network dismantled, and his control broken. The formula Britt needed was secured and handed to people who could reproduce it. But the victory was not clean. Britt's condition worsened before the treatment could be stabilized. Jason stayed by her side, refusing to leave. When she finally opened her eyes after days of uncertainty, she found him there holding her hand. It was not a fairy tale ending, but it was hope, and for them that was enough. Anna recovered slowly, surrounded by people who refused to let her fight alone anymore. The ordeal changed her. She was more cautious, more aware of how close she had come to losing everything. Gratitude and resolve settled into her bones. In the end, the city exhaled. Not because everything was fixed, but because the truth had surfaced. Willow stood exposed, her mask cracked beyond repair. Michael reclaimed his strength, Jason reclaimed his purpose, and those who had walked through darkness emerged, scarred but standing. Port Charles remained a place of danger and passion, but for now, the storm had passed, leaving behind hard-won clarity and the promise that no secret stays buried forever.